What do we know about Venus in terms of prospects for life? Because my understanding is that the surface is incredibly hot and inhospitable.
Yeah, that's right. So the temperature at the surface is, I don't know, maybe 500 centigrade or something. So we can't think of any kind of life that would work there. Everything would just like melt. The chemical reactions for life that we can dream of just wouldn't work. But the clouds are more where the pressure is similar to what it is on the surface of the Earth. The temperature is also a bit similar to the surface of the Earth, maybe like 20, 30 centigrade. So if you could have a tiny microbe like floating in the clouds, provided it could get nutrients and it wouldn't be, I don't know, destroyed by something, it does seem just slightly possible. So the main barrier is the clouds are not like clouds on Earth. They're not water. They're probably mostly acid with traces of water. So that's the bit we don't understand, if microbes could survive being corroded by this acid, or if even they could use it as a basis for life, like chemical reactions that run in acid instead of in water. But that really throws the whole thing into the realm of the unexplored, which particularly the role of phosphine. We don't know what on earth it would be doing in that kind of different situation.
So it wouldn't necessarily be looking like very similar chemistry to life on Earth. You'd need something sort of different to be
so you could show that some things like some of the nucleic acids, I think, have been tried in sulfuric acid baths, and they don't disappear like you might necessarily expect. But this is a whole new branch of chemistry that people are just trying for the first time.
There's long been this speculation about, could there be life on Venus, because in the past the surface may have been more habitable than it is now, and there's this idea that then as the planet heats up, perhaps life could possibly have escaped into the clouds. Is that the scenario?
Yeah, it's really unclear at the moment, because it was thought when the sun was less luminous, maybe a couple of billion years ago, that Venus might naturally have been better for having liquid water on the surface and like some kind of little organisms evolving and then flying off to the clouds as there was a sort of greenhouse effect catastrophe that made the surface so hot. That's recently been thrown into great uncertainty by some chemical calculations that suggest maybe all the like chemicals coming out from volcanoes inside Venus suggests that actually there isn't a lot of water down there, and perhaps there never has been. But that's very new work, and people are still thinking and working through the implications of that. Maybe there wasn't these rich oceans, but maybe it was some other kind of chemistry that could have evolved into life.
And there are quite a few other strange features on Venus, aren't there, that are quite difficult to explain with the chemistry that we know. I'm thinking about there's dark features. Something's absorbing a lot of the UV radiation.
Yeah, so we're not really sure where that comes from. So we see ultraviolet absorption. So if you look with ultraviolet telescopes, and cameras, it looks very dark. That's actually in the clouds, but it might be stuff blowing up from the surface as well. But as you say, the surface is really uncertain. I think there have literally been like 4 landers in the 1980s that managed to take a picture before they melted into a puddle or the electronics blew up or something, because it's so hot. It's a bit hard if you think of like if you took 4 snapshots somewhere on the surface of the Earth, figuring out how the whole planet works from that is like impossible. So we don't really know what sort of rocks the surface is made of. Like these volcanoes, they're probably everywhere, but like the atmosphere is really hard to see through. So we've got also, I think, literally 2, maybe 3 pictures that look like a volcano happened, like an actual lava flow. So it's like, putting together a 1,000-piece jigsaw with 7 pieces and 993 missing, perhaps.
Yeah, it's strange to think that we know so little for a relatively close by planets. So we have quite a few gases that are out of equilibrium for what you'd expect for the chemistry that we sort of know about. And then you've got something is absorbing a lot of energy from the radiation arriving at the planet that we don't really know what that's about. And there are sort of particles in the clouds as well. Is that right? That we're not quite sure what the composition of those is?
Yes. So there's certainly something we're not even clear if it's like weird little solid particles or weirdly shaped little droplets, actually, because the sampling that's been done is tiny. Like a few things fell through the clouds for a few minutes each. So it'd be fantastic to send a proper sampling mission, maybe even, a balloon that could float in the clouds with some sort of traps attached to it. I think we really need those samples. And indeed, I believe China has proposed sending us the first sample and return mission to Venus in the next decade, perhaps, and that would be amazing.
Are there other missions that are scheduled to go to Venus? Are we likely to get any more close-up data soon?
Hope so, yes. So Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and the private rocket launch company Rocket Lab are collaborating, and with a little bit of NASA involvement, I believe, to try and send another probe, kind of similar in size to the ones that went in the 70s and 80s, but obviously with modern technology, with a sort of lab on a chip even. So they're hoping to send, maybe even next year, like a tiny instrument that could look for complex organic chemistry, and that's never been tried before. So getting the signals back for that would be amazing. It still wouldn't, I don't think it could provide a definite proof for life, but it could find some of the processes like fluorescence that organisms do, that would be another completely different clue.
And what do you think this whole debate suggests for our ability to find life on planets outside of our solar system? Because that's obviously a sort of big kind of area of interest as well at the moment. And then just, looking at the difficulties and, the different possible explanations just on Venus, like, have we got a chance of being able to resolve these questions on sort of planets so much further away?
I think it's going to be an amazing next 10 or 20 years. I suppose, a child opens their textbook in 20 years and it says, well, we found, a non-water-based life on Titan using the Dragonfly mission, and we found a sample from Mars with microbes, and we collected a sample from Venus clouds and that had completely different microbes. That child will be going, wow, life forms easily everywhere. It's kind of a dream of mine. And then I think it will be so much more hopeful to go, it's going to be really hard, but if we find something that might be a biosignature from the atmospheres of extrasolar planets, maybe we found lots of those, I don't know, let's say we found it on 20 planets, they might not all be fooling us if it seemed like life was so possible in the solar system. And then that really raises the idea, well, not just boring microbes, I mean, fascinating, like diverse microbes, but, larger organisms populating a planet, maybe, animals up to, intelligent creatures.
And the work that you've done, has that made you think differently about life, about what life is, about how we might recognize it?
I think it has. Like I say, it was completely unexpected. We did this fun experiment to get a limit and no detection. And then I do remember driving home very slowly and carefully the night I first saw it in the spectrum, thinking oh wow, and maybe Titan and maybe Mars, what if they all were not exactly teeming with life, but some life was clinging on there? That would be incredible.